So all these remarks that I just shared with you are entirely spontaneous. The Spirit moved me somehow, as it sometimes will. I recently gave an address. This was over in Berlin. At the end of it, the guy who introduced me said, "Dennis, you said everything except for one word at the end. You forgot the amen." So he said, "Amen." Everybody says amen. Okay, but that's not what the speech is about. What's the speech about, Dennis, Shirley? So diversity and assessment, living it and sharing it. Think about all the things that we actually want to know in our world, right? So we want our kids to know about the natural world in the upper left there, that image there of the kids. We want them to understand the relationship with nature. We want them to understand that the food that they eat, the clothes that they wear, the machinery, the cars that they get into, these are all products of Mother Earth that we've somehow developed with the blessings of machinery. So we want them to understand. There's a great quote from Robert Pirsig, Zen in the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance, where he says early on, he says, you know, the workings of a motorcycle should be as beautiful to us as a lotus blossom was to a Buddhist, right? So how can you kind of take this mechanical world and make it accessible and exciting and engaging for kids? And then also, our parents are part of the picture. I want our parents to understand this wonderful intimacy that you can establish with your kids, where you're just sitting there and holding them on your lap, right? And you have this connection as the child is just lost in the wonder of this story. And then at the same time, also their peer relationships. We want our kids to be able to deal with this emerging world, which is multicultural, multiracial, multilingual. So how do we set up our schools and our society so kids find that kids from other backgrounds are interesting and bring something new to the conversation, that's something they thirst for, that they want to have, and do all of those things and still have our kids excel on traditional paper and pencil tests, which are part of our reality, but they are a part of our reality. They are not our reality. So all these things are things that we have to be thinking about when we go into this activity of assessment. How do we assess? So, you know, I've only got you for a little bit of time here tonight, so all that you kind of get with something like this at the end of a busy day, when it would just be so tempting to go home, put up your feet, pop open a beer, see what's on TV. Instead you're here, okay, because we care about our kids. So I'm just going to I packed in a whole bunch of different remarks. And so I'll quickly go over them in a bit of a staccato form here, what we're going to try and do. First of all, you might think, oh man, it's been rough out there in Alberta. You know, a year ago they cut all these special education positions. Now funding's being restored, but is it ever going to percolate down to my school? Is my class size ever going to get reduced? Well, one of the things to understand is right now, in terms of other countries, like it or not, leadership has been foisted upon you. You guys keep on doing pretty well on international tests. Okay? And others are trying to say, how come they're doing that in Alberta? We can't do that in Alaska. How come they're doing that in Alberta and we can't do that in the United Kingdom? How come they're doing that in Alberta and we can't do that in New South Wales? So people are trying to figure out what you're doing here. I also want to share some remarks with research, right? So in education, one of the things we got to kind of get past is just, well, I had a hunch, so then I tried this. Or my intuition told me, okay? If we're going to be a profession like medicine, architecture, law, engineering, then we got to develop a research base. And it has to be a rigorous research base. So we have to be tough-minded. We have to be willing to look at our own practices and improve them. I love this quote. This is from Friedrich Schleiermacher, okay, a German educator. The dignity of pedagogy. Now, policymakers out there, they'll understand a whole bunch of different things. They'll understand funding streams. They'll understand human resource management. Okay, they'll understand line management, the idea that they want to be able to tell the superintendents what to do, and the superintendents will tell the principals what to do, and the principals will tell the teachers what to do, and the teachers will tell the kids what to do, and the kids will do it. Right? What's that great song? Dream on, dream on. Right? Because it turns out every step of the way you're actually dealing with human beings. Thank goodness. Right? And so we're bringing our emotions, we're bringing our life histories, we're bringing our cultural narratives, we're bringing our gender identities, social class, we're bringing all of that into the learning experience. And it's your responsibility. You're not at the bottom of the pyramid, you're at the top of the pyramid. Right? Because the kids can't learn if the teachers aren't engaged and aren't curious and don't have rich resources for working with the kids. Right? The very best resources. So every day when you get up in the morning, the dignity of what you do, the dignity of your instruction has got to be at the foreground. So we're going to look at that because I've worked hard with this Mindful Teacher seminar over the past 6 years to try and help teachers who feel so beaten up on, so underappreciated, so much the victim of so many policies, to help them to understand that when they're getting down to that interaction with the kids, there's nobody in the world who's more important than them at that moment. Okay, so how do we take that encounter between the teacher and the kids and nourish it and say that's the most important moment in our society? That's not the residue of everything else, that's the zenith. Okay? Because what do you ultimately want the legacy of your life to be? Don't you want it to be that you passed on the very best that you could? You can look those kids in the eye and you can say, we did the best we could. Now, sometimes I lost my temper. Sometimes I lost the narrative of my instruction. Sometimes I didn't make the best curricular choice. Sometimes my assessments were wrong. But my intention was always to give you the very best. Right? So I've worked with teachers around this for several years now. And I also want to talk about this report. This was a great report you guys put out, Leading Our Future Together. I actually was honored to write the introduction to that report. Because part of what you got to do in leading your future together is be interested in each other. What if each one of you went back to your schools tomorrow and you sought out some colleagues you don't usually talk to? He said, what are you experiencing in your classroom? Tell me about your kids. What are you noticing about our kids this year? Okay, and you use all that space in the school, in between classes. You know, when you're getting a cup of coffee in the teacher's lounge. I love the Boston Red Sox, but if I go in another teacher's lounge and talk about what happened to the Boston Red Sox this last year, I'm going to cry. The whole team caved in and collapsed, right? So you can talk about sports to a certain extent in your teacher's lounges, but that shouldn't be all of our conversations. Nor should it be American Idol or Canadian Idol or Britain's Got Talent, right? All that stuff. We want to talk about learning in our kids. So leading our future together is great because it's about Calgary teachers. Then I want to talk about the perils of mindless leadership. Okay, mindless leadership is when we do research and the research says, geez, what you're doing in the schools doesn't work. And they say, okay, that's great, that was a good report, now let's put it on the shelf and just go back and do more. Do more of what the Brits call, you got to love the British sometimes, they're just so honest. They used to use this expression, flogging the system. Right? So, guess who the system is, ladies and gentlemen? It's you and me. Okay, let's just get people to work harder. Oh, they're already working 60 hours a week. Well, that's not enough. Let's have them do 70 hours a week. And you can do that. You're idealistic. You come into the profession, you don't have any kids. But what happens to a lot of us is all of a sudden there's this thing called a family. Right? You gotta kind of like understand. No, I want a profession. I don't want to be a martyr. I want to calibrate things. Okay, so we got to figure out how we work with our leaders so they understand the pressures on teachers. And then we got to kind of get beyond the way that 21st century skills gets marketed. In education, I don't know what happens in education, but we've always got, somebody's always got the latest thing that's going to save everything. So the latest thing that's going to save everything now is technology, except that it's not saving everything, right? We're paying for this brutally in the US. The new strategy, the new innovative, hot strategy, watch out for this one, is fire the teachers and then just buy computers. Right? Guess what? The results are disastrous because the kids actually need human beings. They actually need people with some expertise. So we've got to kind of get beyond misunderstandings of what technology can do and can't do. But whatever it will be, leadership is thrust upon you right now. Okay? Sitting over there in Norway with the OECD, people are looking at all the tables. Alberta has been doing really well. Ontario's been doing well. British Columbia, Quebec. Got a bunch of different provinces that are among the top achievers globally. Okay? So people are going to be looking to you. And you might as well figure out right now how you're going to handle that message because delegations are going to be coming through. And they're going to want to know what you're doing to get those achievement results. So